So let's talk a little bit about cutting through all the bullshit. Um, when somebody is bullshitting you, first of all, it helps to know first off that you're dealing with a liar. Like that's the absolute first thing that needs to stick in your head. This person is a liar. So anytime you confront them with anything uncomfortable, you're going to get a lie as your first response. You will also get a lie as the second response, and the third, and the fourth. And quite frankly, even when they're absolutely confronted with the truth, they will still lie. So it's a safe bet that they're lying. Well, that makes the rest of it easy. Because when you know that they're being a snake, when you know that they're being sneaky and going behind your back, and you know they are because they're being quiet, it becomes rather easy to know that something is amiss. So, when confronted, and remember this, remember all the details from the first story they tell, because that is the version that is least thought through. So every subsequent addition to that has more thought behind it because the thinking has continued, right? So let's break down what happens when you have serial lies. The original version that you are told has various untrue and incorrect facts associated with things, people, places, and times. Okay? So you need to remember who and what was where, when, and why. Okay? So if you're questioning somebody's behavior, and they say, so when you question somebody on what they're doing, typically the first story it gets spun so that they are saying that what they were doing was the right thing to do. Okay, so it usually involves them being the hero and them doing something that's going to make them look good, or that it's right and just and correct, and that ultimately it was a mistake, but that was their intentions. And then from there, it will devolve down into statements like, I've done nothing wrong. I did nothing wrong. I'm not at fault. Right? The whole I did nothing wrong. Okay? Well, you did. And one of the things that you can always look for is they're very likely to triangulate against somebody who is not present. Okay? So say, for instance, you catch somebody going behind your back and being a snake. You'll always say something like, well, I mean, it wasn't that, like, they told me blah, 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 blah. And at first I was like, I didn't want to get involved. But then, and even Billy over there, I should have known better. I thought I was doing something right. And Billy said that I just shouldn't involve myself, but, I wanted to help. I wanted to do the right thing, So they're going to be set. So they often do that to show that they were going against their better judgment for a noble cause. Okay? And that's because if what they're doing is being sneaky and not something normal, then the lie behind that means, yes, this is not something a normal person would do, but I did it against my better judgment because of noble purposes. And they'll often try to use a triangulated statement to justify it. And that's your key. Because then you can say, well, they knew it was, because then later on, and whenever you continue down the path, and they'll say, I've done nothing wrong. I had no idea it would turn out that way. And you can say, no, bullshit, because you had a conversation with so-and-so. And in that conversation, it was decided that what you were doing was wrong and a mistake, and you made the choice to do it anyways. So you knew going into it that it was wrong. So you can't tell me it was wrong. And you can't tell me it was a mistake. It was not a mistake. It was a conscious decision you made knowing full well what the consequences would be. It's not a mistake. It was a risk you took and you lost. And that works very effectively, because then they continue the lie. And you say, well, you know what? Here, I tell you what. Let's just call them. I'm going to call them because I know them. Let's just call them and have this conversation. They're saying, no, you're crazy. You don't want to bring so-and-so and blah, blah, blah. Or you're just crazy. And you say, well, no, obviously you had a conversation with them and you've implicated them. So now I'm curious why they wouldn't tell me, because that's bothersome, because they didn't have my back when you were hatching this plan. So yeah, they got involved and they didn't tell me. So whether you like it or not, I want to talk to them. And at that point, they're probably going to go into a fit of rage. They're going to change the subject. They're going to make it all about you. They're going to start throwing in the kitchen sink at you to to I guess distract you, take your focus off of that, put you in a defensive position, right? Because at that point you have the position of power, right? You are in the offensive position. They're in the defensive position, and at that point you can expect for them to unhurl an entire barrage of attacks. And the purpose of that is because you're in the position of power, they are pushing you down to a defensive position, so that you now feel like you are having to defend yourself rather than being the one to launch the attack. That's how that works. So you know full well that it's coming. They launch into the attack and all that stuff. Just be like, you know what? It's not worth it. Fuck you. And you just turn around and you leave. Then what you do, you call whoever it is they triangulated. And you say, hey, man, I just wanted to let you know my ex or whoever it was just spreading some shit about you, and it made me uncomfortable. I thought they were putting words in your mouth, and I thought I'd let you know what they said. And I want to let you know because, whatever conversation it was that they did or did not have, because whether they had that conversation or not, they still threw somebody under the bus in the process, right? So you call that person up and say, I just wanted to let you know I had this conversation over, it didn't even have anything to do with you. But then they said that you said A, B, and C, which I wanted to ask you about, and just, it didn't seem right to me because that doesn't sound like something you would say or do. And usually I would have expected you to come with me with something like that. And who knows, maybe the conversation did happen. More than likely, it was a conversation that did sort of happen, and as with everything else manipulator, it has a slight twinge of truth to it. It's mostly a lie with kind of a truthy aftertaste, and that's what they push, because they'll end up saying, well, that's kind of what I said, but it was not at all like what I was intending, and that seems largely out of context. And if they get defensive, just say, no, Joe, like, trust me, I'm not attacking you at all. Like, I'm letting you know, right? Like, I'm not even mad. I ain't mad. Like, I'm letting you know what they said. And if you recorded the conversation, that helps immensely. You don't let them hear the whole conversation. You let them hear just the part where they were implicated, right? And you say it was part of a bigger conversation, and even though I'm at odds with them, I don't want to, I don't want to go behind their back any more than necessary with what we were talking about. I don't want to do that. But my concern was for the fact that somebody else was putting words in your mouth and shit. So, I just want you to know. Now, if you have it recorded, if they believe you and if they don't ask for it, by all means, don't come running at them and record her first, because that's going to be a big put off, like, for them. Because it's like, well, damn, how many people do you record? Are you always recording? Yeah, typically, if you're recording shit, record it for yourself and just don't be forthcoming about it. Record shit for your own memory and your own recollection. If you're dealing with a manipulator, you never know when you're going to need to go back in time and remember what was said when. That's just the general state of it, and that becomes your life. And it's usually not other people's problem. And even if you try to explain yourself to them, there's still just really no explaining it to people without creeping them out. So you just do it for yourself and keep your records. But in the rare event where you have to provide some sort of proof, you've got it, right? So that's about it. That's how you deal with a snake. That's how you can deal the lie back to them. But of course, whenever they find out, then they're gonna be like, oh so mad that you went behind their back, and you just say, well, how's it feel? Doesn't feel so good, does it? No? Well, hope you learned something. Because that's kind of how I felt when you did it to me. So that's how that works. I say, perhaps we understand each other a little better now. Now fuck off, because I don't want to talk to you. And that's where you leave it. Thank you very much for listening. I hope this helps. To sum it up, if you're dealing with a liar, that first lie is the one to remember the best. Or, put the most focus on their first version, because it has the least amount of thought behind it. Oh, and one last thing. When people are being honest and truthful, the story doesn't change. And when you're telling the truth, the very first things out your mouth will line up and make sense. That's how the truth works. It's pretty simple. Your first statement's pretty much true and correct, and it doesn't need to change. And as always, if you tell somebody the truth and they get mad, it's not your problem to deal with. You already gave them as much help as you possibly could by being honest and upfront. And then you don't have to change your answer, and you don't have to stress to get them to believe it. They're not going to believe it, or they're going to act like you're lying. You can just laugh, and that's their problem. If that's the flag they want to carry into battle, by all means, let them. They're just going to look like an idiot. I told them from the get-go, and they didn't listen. I can't help them any more than that. I gave them the truth to start. Sorry about your luck, but you should listen. All right, I'm out of time. Thank you very much. Please like, comment, or share. If you have any stories about something like this, by all means, fill in the comments below. I always love to hear from you guys. I'll see you on the next video.